Hello, in this session we are just going to understand the basics of how this entire 3D reproduction or AR reproduction on the web works. Now basically, see, you already know that in web we have three files. One is the HTML, CSS and the JavaScript. And now when it comes to JavaScript, to actually build 3D applications on the web, to render 3D, just like in Blender you render a scene, to render something on your browser, a web language was developed and it was called as web graphic language, or in short we call it as WebGL. And this WebGL is a standard which is now supported by all web browsers, whether it is Mac, Windows, Linux or any platform, mobile, everything supports this WebGL. Now this WebGL, when you use this basic web graphic language and if you try to build the application, what happens is, it is very difficult and you have to do a lot of coding. There was a person called as Ricardo Cabello, and this Ricardo Cabello, what he did was, in April 2010, he actually created an JavaScript tool or a library, and he basically built it for Adobe Flash. What you have Adobe Animate today, that was originally called as Macromedia Flash. It was taken by Adobe, and when we were using in 2000 to 2010 in Flash, in 2D animation to bring in the 3D objects, this Ricardo Cabello developed this action script. He developed it as an action script using JavaScript in 2010. He then actually created an API design, canvas renderer, SVG renderer, on all these things he merged together, and as WebGL came into the picture, Paul Brani, another person, he implemented a new rendering technology, and later on this Three.js library. Now this Ricardo Cabello is also called as Mr. Doob. He is available on Twitter, and he actually developed this entire Three.js application. So if you want to know what is this Three.js, what you can do is go to your browsers and type Three.js.org. and you are brought to this website, and you have the current version which is R168. This is the latest version, and from here this is where you have all the content regarding Three.js available. You have many samples here, you can click and see it. You have examples. See, if you come to examples and if you click on animation and if you just check it, see all this technologies, whatever technologies you are seeing here, you have many. See, you can see how the reflection is working. See, you can see this. See, all, you can even move this object, and as I am moving, see, her face and hand is also moving. So all this kind of application were built on the web using Three.js. Now if you come to docs here, and in documentation in Three.js, if you come to documentation, you have here a detailed documentation about how to use this. And to install this, previously we installed it using npm, but here what you can do is, you have code here, either you can download it from GitHub or you have an option here called as download, and when you click on this download, so now this file is downloaded, you can click on open folder. You have this Three.js master. I will just cut it and I will come into my PC, and in your folder you can just put it in your, say for example in your WebAR folder itself, you can just paste this zip file. Okay, so and in this, if you just unzip this file, I'll go to WinRAR, extract files, and if I unzip this entire file, now inside this Three.js master, one basic thing that you find inside this, you have a folder called build, and inside build you have the actual Three.js file, this 3.module.js, which is around 1269 kilobytes. This is what we have to use. So for your purpose, what I have done is, I will come back to WebAR here, and right as of now, I will remove this from this folder and I will put it outside somewhere, because I doesn't want this in the WebAR folder. I have just showed it to you, and in this WebAR folder, to develop this 3D application, now I will right click and I am now going to create a new folder, and I am going to call this as 2AR basics. And then I am also going to create here another folder, and I am going to call this folder as lips. And in this lips folder now, in the link, I have provided you with a Three.js file. What you have to do is, you just download that file. So from the link provided, download this three.module.js that I have provided to you. You just copy this file and then come to your folder, that is in your WebAR folder. You have created a folder called lips, and inside this you just paste this. Now come back into 2_AR basics, and we are again going to start from raw. I am going to right click, I will choose new, and I am now going to create a new text document, and I am going to call this as again index.html. Now along with index.html, I am also going to create a JavaScript file. So I will go to file, choose new, and in text document, this time I am going to call this file as main.js. So I have created two files here. One is index.html and another is the main.js. So, and we have in the lips folder this 3.module.js. These are the three files that we are going to work now. So right now, what now I am going to do is, I will come over here and select this index.html, right click, and I am going to open it in my notepad. In our browser, I will just go back, and now along with one intro, I have 2AR basics. This is the new folder that has been created, and in this now you are not seeing anything because in index.html we have not added anything. So now in my index.html, I am going to type HTML in open close greater than lesser than 5 and then lesser than /HTML, and I will close this tag. And inside this HTML tag, I am now going to add the body tag, and I am also going to close the body tag. And later on, I am going to also add a head tag, head open tag and head close tag. Okay, so I have added it, and inside this head tag, I am now going to, I will just press tab and move this head tag a little to the side. Body tag also I will move it to the side like this, and inside the head tag now, I am now going to add a script, and I will add a script tag and I will end it this tag, and inside this script tag now we are not going to type our JavaScript inside this. We are going to type our JavaScript in a separate file. Inside this script tag now, I am now going to call this function src, and this src will be equal to in inverted comma, open close inverted comma. This file is present in the same folder, so I have to add dot and /, and then I am going to call the file main.js. And once I have called this file, now what I will do is I will save this, and if I click on AR basics, I will now open this main.js file. This also I will right click and open it in the notepad. So you have index.html and main.js. And now in this main.js, the very first thing is I have to import my Three.js library. I will type import everything. To import everything, I will add the star, and what is the name I want to give it? I'm going to call it as 3, all in capital, and from where it has to be imported, in open close inverted comma, here I am going to type the path. So where is my file? So if you come to your folder, if you come out of WebAR basics, you have a folder called libs, and inside this you have this 3.module.js. So for this, what I have to do here is, inside this inverted comma, I have to add 2 dots and / to come out of the folder. Then it has to go into a folder called libs, and inside libs I want this file. So I will just right click here, choose rename. I will select this entire name here. I will copy this. I will come over here and I will paste it. And after pasting this, now I will go to file and save this. So now here, after importing it, I will end this with semicolon, and after this I want to test whether this code has been imported correctly or not. So for this, I will come down and I will add one more line called as console.log, and inside console.log I am going to type 3 and I am going to close this comma, and I am going to type 3 and I am going to close this and end it with semicolon. I am asking the console.log to log this 3 library, and after this, if I save this and if I come to my browser, and in the browser now if I refresh it, you are going to get an error, cannot use import statement outside a module. The reason why I am getting this error is, if I come back to index.html, now after this src, since I am using it as an external library, I have to add one line here. Type, I have to add equal to, and in open close inverted comma, I have to now add module. If I add this one type module attribute, now I will save it, and if I refresh it, you have an error here, console. So I have a mistake in spelling. See, I have written as console. I will replace it, I will save this. Now I will again refresh it, and now you can see all the errors are gone. And if I open this module, all the available Three.js commands, you can see it here. So our first stage of getting this Three.js library into our web application is now done. Now let us start adding our Three.js code. Let us start creating our 3D object just from a notepad. So here now next what we are going to do is, I will press enter here and I will come to document. Now what happens is, I want this script to run only after your website is loaded. This script should not get executed before the website is loaded, then you will get an error. So for that reason, I will add this document and I will add an event listener. See, add event listener, where E and S are capital, and in open close bracket, I am going to first call this listener. The listener I am going to use here is in inverted comma. Inside the inverted comma, I will call this as DOM content loaded. Means DOM means the document object model, that is in your website. It is going to test whether all the content is loaded, and if it is loaded, then I am going to call a function. So I will add open close bracket equals greater than sign, and in open close parenthesis, now inside this open close flower bracket, see this function here is what my code is now going to come. So now to understand how this works, I will give you an example with Blender, because you have already worked on the Blender, and in the Blender, as soon as you work on 3D, the very first thing what you see here is a scene. See, this is a scene. You can see here, we call this as a scene. You can add additional scene. So the very first scene, to render a 3D scene, what we need? To build a 3D scene, we need a scene. So I will come back to my code here, and in the code, the very first thing I am going to declare is, I am now going to call a constant, a variable, and I am going to call this variable as scene, and this will be equal to a new 3 object which is scene. Here S is capital. So we are creating a scene by name scene from this library new3.scene. So we have created the scene. After the scene, what is that we need? If I come back to my Blender, you have a 3D object here. And what do we call this 3D object as? We call this object as geometry. You have box geometry, sphere or plane, all this what we call, it is a geometry. So what I have to now do is, after this in the second line, I am now going to call constant and I am going to call geometry, and this will be equal to new 3, and I am going to add what kind of, I need a cube now. So for cube in 3, there is a ready-made geometry available which is box geometry, and this box geometry in open close parenthesis, I have to give it a dimension. I will give it 1 comma space 1 comma and 1, and then I am going to end it with semicolon. So I have created a scene, I have created a geometry, and for this geometry to be visible in 3J, in Blender, what we do? We add a material. See, you have one default material here. Without material, you cannot see this. So similarly, now after this, next I am going to create constant, I am going to create a material. See, all variable names I keep started with small letter, then this will be equal to Blender. You can see you have various type of material. You might be knowing you have various kinds of material here. See in Blender. So all these materials are also available in 3JS. So as of now in this code, new 3, and the type of material I am going to use is mesh M capital basic and material, and this material in open close brackets I am going to add parameters. I will end it with semicolon, and inside this I am going to add the parameter, and this parameter I will add it with flower bracket, and inside the flower bracket the first parameter I will add it is a color. I will give this material a color, I will add colon, and the color I am going to give it is red. What I will do is, I will keep red 0, green 0, and for blue I will type FF. This is called as hexagonal code. Okay, FF means maximum. So I have given this color code. So I have added a scene, I have added a geometry, I have added a material, and this geometry and material should combine together to create a mesh. So if you come to Blender, whatever cube you are seeing here, if you come over to the object data, you can see that this cube has, what does this cube has? This cube has one geometry. We have created this geometry, and then it has a material. We have created the material, we have created the geometry, and now we have to create this mesh. So for this, I will come back here, and I am now going to type here in the next line, I am going to type here constant, and I am now going to call the cube, and this will be equal to new 3, and this time this is a mesh, and in open close bracket, so I will end it with semicolon. So just like inside this mesh you have this cube and material, I am going to add inside this tree the geometry I have created here. So I am going to add geometry, comma, material. Now the next thing is, see, this cube is here and this is already added here. This cube should be added to my scene. So you have this scene, and inside this scene this cube has to be added. So here in Three.js, next what I have to do, after declaring all this constant, then I am now going to see, I have already declared the scene as scene, and this scene I am now going to add, what I am going to add in open close bracket, I am going to add the cube. See, we created, see the actual hierarchy here. Geometry is created as box geometry of dimension 111. Material is created, a blue material is created. Then this geometry and material is added in a mesh, and that mesh is equal to cube. Sorry, here I have forgotten to put equals. Okay, so I have added the equal. So I have created one variable cube equal to mesh which has this geometry and material, and then I have seen here, and to this scene I have added this cube. And after this, the next thing is, where is the cube present? So for this, in Blender you have this location, what we call, this is called as position. We have, if you want it at the center, we keep all this to 0 0 0. So similarly here, now what can I now do is, I will call this cube a property called, I will just press tab, come here, cube position. I will set its position, and in open close bracket and in semicolon, now I will type the xyz value. The x I will keep it 0, y I will keep it 0, and z I will keep it 0, so that it is exactly at the center. Now what happens is, see this cube, what you are seeing, if I see it in the front view like this, see it appears like a plane. So to appear like a cube, what I have to do, I have to select this cube, press R, and I have to rotate it in some angle. Okay, so only if I rotate it like this, I can see this as a cube. And when I am rotating it, so similarly here, if you, to make it look like a cube, I am going to slightly rotate it. How am I going to rotate it? I am going to type cube, 1 second, I will press tab, cube, I will call the rotation, and for position, in open close bracket, I will add semicolon, and for position what we did, we added 0 0 0. So similarly, if I add 0 0 0 here, all the 3 rotations will be 0. But now I want it to be rotated along the y-axis by around approximately 45 degree. I can't directly write here 45 because rotation is in radians. And if I want 45 degree, what I have to now do here is, I have to type here, I have to call the function math.pi. See, the value of math.pi is 180 degree, and if I divide that by 4, 180 degree divided by 4 means 45 degree. So now my cube is going to rotate by 45 degree. Okay, so now I have to render, before I render, what else you need in a Blender? So say for example, if I remove off the camera in Blender, and if I go to render and choose render image, see it shows no camera found in scene. Without camera you cannot render it. So I will edit, undo it, and if I have the camera, now I can render the image. So to render the image, camera is very important. So now I have to add a camera. So I will come back here, and after this I will come down, and I am going to again declare a variable, and I will call it as camera, and this will be equal to new 3 component. And what type of camera I am going to add? Perspective camera. P is capital, C is capital, and in open close bracket I will end it with semicolon. I have not added any parameter to it. Now if I leave it as it is, what happens is this camera goes and sits at the center. I cannot see it anything. So for this camera to show the cube correctly, I have to move it. Say for example, if the cube is here, I will just reset its rotation to 0, okay, and cube is here, and for if I set the camera position as 0, now in the camera view what happens, if I come to camera view, it is inside the cube. If I render, nothing will be visible. See, nothing is visible because it has gone and sat inside the cube. So what I want, if this rendering has to happen correctly, if I come to top view, I have to select this camera. Okay, I have to move it slightly like this. So approximately I have to move it by 1 unit along the x-axis and 1 unit along the y-axis and 5 units along the z-axis. So what I will do is, I will come back here, and now for this camera, I will add, I will press tab here, I will add position, and this position I am going to use the command set, because this position has to be set in open close bracket in semicolon. I am going to add the position. So the x value of this camera will be 1 comma, y value I will keep it 1 unit, and along z I will move it by 5 units. So I have added my cube, I have adjusted position and rotation, I have added camera and adjusted the position. To see this, what you actually do here, you will come to render and you render the image, and in Blender, if you come to render setting here, you also have rendering type engine. You have EV, you have cycle, you have workbench. Similarly, even in Three.js, we have different renderers. So now what we are now going to do, we are going to call a constant. I am going to now call a constant called renderer. Renderer I will call it, and this will be equal to new 3. And what type of renderer I am using now is a WebGL. So in this WebGL, GLR is capital, renderer. I will use this WebGL renderer, where GL are a capital, open close bracket, and I will end it with a semicolon. And then I will call this renderer, and this renderer, what it has to do now? It has to render scene, comma, camera, and I am going to close it with semicolon, and I will open close bracket and semicolon. So now we have added the object, material, mesh is added to the scene, camera has been added and position is set, and I have created the renderer. So then after adding this renderer, now in rendering in Blender, you will set the size. See, I will set its size to 1920 into 1080. This size we are going to set. And how are we going to set the size in Three.js? Similar to that, I am now going to call this variable called, we'll call this renderer, and then period, I will call set, S is capital, set size, and in open close bracket, I will end it with semicolon, and inside this, I will set its Y size to 500 pixel and Y size to 500 pixel, because my screen browser is 2D. I have set X and Y value to 500 and 500. And now you might ask, see in my web page, if you come to index.html, here where is it going to render this? Where exactly should it render it, in head or body, or in which element it is going to render? So actually in main.js, when you actually create this WebGL renderer, automatically a canvas is created, and that canvas is of size 500 by 500, and inside this, the scene and camera are rendered. So once the render is happened, now what should happen? This rendered canvas should be added to my web page, because in this code there is no canvas at all. I have to add it. So how am I going to add it? I will come to the next line, I will press tab, I will come to my document, and in document where I want to add it, inside the body. To add it, I am going to use the command append child, and in open close bracket, I will end it with semicolon, and inside that, what is that I have to add? Renderer and renderer DOM element. So whatever canvas is DOM element, and that renderer DOM element I have to add it to my HTML body. And now with all this thing done, let us save this, come back to our browser, and keeping our finger crossed, if I preview this, see there is some error here. Document add event listener. The problem we have is this event spelling is wrong. So you are getting the error. Now I will save this and I will refresh it, and now there is the error is I can't directly add the position. I have to add one more parameter here as set. I had missed it. So I am getting this. Even for rotation now I will add this set, and I am now going to save this. Now let us refresh and see. See, it is saying unknown color. The problem is here I have not added the hashtag. So I have to add the hashtag, and if I save this and now if I refresh it, see now what is happening, you are seeing the cube. And where is the cube present? The cube position is set at 0, 0, 0 and it is rotated, and the camera, see for example camera Y I have set it to 1. I will change the value. If I change the value of this camera from 1, if I change it to 0, and if I save this and if I refresh it, now what happens? It came to the top. And when I set the camera, when I move camera by 1 unit, what happens? When camera moves up, the cube moves down. See, it is coming down. So similarly here cube position is set to 0, 0, 0. So instead of 0, 0 in Z, instead of 0 if I set it to say for example -2 along Z axis, I will move it back. If I save it, see it moves back and it became small. So like this you can make all the changes here, and see we are able to render a 3D object on our scene. Just by using a notepad, we are able to build and render a 3D object on our browser with just a 1 MB 3.js file. So I am showing you this so that you understand the basics of this 3D rendering. And now in our next session, right now this is getting rendered on a black background. This is an AR application. So in the background, I doesn't want black, I want my camera picture. And this part we are going to do it in our next session. Thank you.